So I think the next video we're gonna watch is called The Embarrassing Fall of the Night Elves. That's crazy. Are you guys ready? 3, 2, 1.
During the recent events in Warcraft lore, the Night Elves just can't stop losing. But what if I told you they've been on this downtrend for thousands of years and have fallen tremendously from the powerful empire they once were? Our story begins 15,000 years ago on Azeroth, where a tribe of dark trolls discovered the Well of Eternity. The well was formed from an ancient titanic event on Azeroth and left a limitless font of arcane power that surged with energy. This energy transformed the life around it, including the dark trolls. They evolved to have similar characteristics to the Titans and would adopt a new name, Kaldorei, meaning children of the stars.
What a name.
They were to worship the moon goddess of life, Elune. Now the details of who Elune actually is still shrouded in mystery, which is pretty rare now in the Warcraft universe. We do know a lot about Elune's sister goddess, but really that's it. And speaking of Elune, her son, Cenarius, taught the Night Elves the affinity for druidic magic. The demigod would be instrumental in the upbringing of the Kaldorei, and through his teachings, Druidism and the protection of nature would be a core part of their society. The other side of Kaldorei's society developed an affinity for the arcane. They used the powers of the well to build wondrous temples and expand their ever-growing empire. At the helm of this expansion was their exemplary ruler, Queen Azshara.
Ooh.
It's Brittany, bitch.
Queen Azshara was born with glowing golden eyes, a sign of her future greatness, which was more than true. She was beautiful, strategic, strong-willed, and ruthless. Now in Night Elf society, there was a clear separation between the arcane magic noble users called Highborn and your typical Kaldorei. But that didn't stop everyone in the Empire unanimously praising their new queen. They loved her so much, they renamed the capital city to Zinashari, meaning glory to Azshara.
Oh, wow.
The only real enemy that threatened the Kaldorei Empire was the trolls, and they were easily crushed because when you have a font of unlimited power and soldiers that live for 10,000 years, it makes fighting pretty easy. Azshara
that's kind of true.
Let the trolls live in the mountains of Zuldazar and told them to never expand into Kaldorei lands, and practically the entire continent was now under Kaldorei rule. But Azshara wanted more. The Queen of the Kaldorei made a pact with who she would later discover was Sargeras, the leader of the Burning Legion. Azshara wanted nothing more than to wipe out all of the lesser races on Azeroth, making every inch of the planet under Kaldorei rule. And the Well of Eternity was used as a portal to summon a horde of demons, kicking off the War of the Ancients. And okay, I've talked about this war probably like 13 times on this channel because it's probably the most important event to ever happen on Azeroth and is also the point where the power of the Night Elves starts to fall off of a cliff. Okay, so the war ends with all of the demons being banished from Azeroth, but also the Well of Eternity explodes, boom, and the entire planet is fractured, and like 90% of the Kaldorei Empire is destroyed. After the destruction of the planet, at the brink of death, Azshara and her loyal subjects got turned into fish people by the old god N'Zoth.
Right,
so they technically aren't Night Elves
this
anymore, but they live in Night Elf ruins underwater. More on them later. When the dust settled, the remaining Kaldorei attempted to pick up the pieces of their now fractured empire. Illidan Stormrage, being the dumbass that he is, had vials of water from the Well of Eternity and used it to make a new well. Which, what the hell? What are you trying to do? Blow up the world again? He was in prison for 10,000 years after that. And the dragon aspects helped build a new world tree over the well, which accomplished a multitude of things. The world tree of Teldrassil would regulate the power of the new well and mask its power from evildoers trying to seek it out. It would also use the energies of the well to heal the world, and most importantly, it would make the Kaldorei immortal, so they would not die of old age or disease. This was a new age for the Kaldorei, and the leader that rose to power was High Priestess Tyrande Whisperwind and Malfurion Stormrage. Well, it was Malfurion when he wasn't sleeping, hanging out in the spirit realm of the Emerald Dream with other druids doing druid stuff. I don't know, it's kind of vague. Point is, it was mainly Tyrande who had to deal with the aftermath of the Sundering. After this event, Night Elf society pivoted to be heavily focused on a druidic lifestyle, and the use of arcane magic was forbidden, punishable by death. This was controversial, to say the least, and the remaining Highborn, who had an affinity for the arcane, thought the banning of magic was for cowards. Dathramar Sunstrider, their leader, explained that the Highborn had been using arcane magic for thousands of years before Azshara even ever became the ruler, and it was impossible to deny the great power of the arcane. They were going to continue using it no matter what. It was their birthright, and they weren't going to let any low-born, tree-hugging hippies tell them that they can't use it.
No,
The
I
Highborn
love
were
this.
then
What is
exiled
this?
/ willingly left Kaldorei society to start their own empire in the Eastern Kingdoms, and would later become the High Elves, and then the Blood Elves we know today. The next big event in Kaldorei history was the War of the Satyr. Satyrs were once night elves, twisted by demonic corruption, and they combined their efforts in a unified force to attack the night elves. In order to combat these demons, some druids tapped into an ancient druid form, forbidden to use because of how dangerous it was. These druids were called the Druid of the Pack, and in their wolf form, they were unstoppable killing machines, but in their frenzy, they could not discern friend from foe. Instead of killing these crazed druids, they banished them to the Emerald Dream, and 10,000 years later, they would re-emerge and become the Worgen we know today. And let me just say, it's hilarious. The Night Elves are like, arcane magic? Yeah, no, that stuff is dangerous, and it's corruptive, not good. Let's ban it all and then use druid magic instead. And then right after, they tap into corruptive druid magic and they start murdering each other. Yep, Night Elves are very logical. The next war is the War of the Shifting Sands. The old god Cthulhu and his insectoid creatures, called the Karaji, stirred awake in Silithus, and the Night Elf forces traveled down to snuff them out. And then they got the ever-loving crap beaten out of them, and they were forced to retreat. And in fact, they needed help from the dragons to bail them out and imprison the old god threat once again. Perhaps the war would have gone better if they didn't, hemorrhage themselves and they actually used arcane magic, maybe? I don't know, just an idea. Between the War of the Shifting Sands and the events of Warcraft III, there really is no substantial history about the Night Elves. They have just been living in seclusion in the northern reaches of Kalimdor. And I've ragged on them a lot in this video, but the depiction of Night Elves around the time of Warcraft III is by far some of my favorite world building done in the Warcraft universe. They're incredibly cool. To outsiders, the Kaldorei have become this elusive, powerful force deep in the enchanted woods of northern Kalimdor. 7-foot-tall Amazonian sentinels stalk trespassers in their lands. From within the dark brush of the forest, their glowing eyes hunt their prey, shimmering with bright white light reminiscent of the goddess they worship. Their tactics are flawless, having honed their skills for tens of thousands of years. When Gromhellscream tried and failed to claim Ashenvale, he is quoted saying, "These women fight with unmatched savagery. I've never seen their equal. They are perfect warriors." And that is Gromhellscream, the war guy. Hulking druids the size of refrigerators can feel your very presence. Trespassing into the forests, they have formed a deep spiritual bond with. They transform into savage beasts that can rip through a group of soldiers in a single swipe. The Kaldorei are not nice. They're intolerant, savage, spiteful warriors of nature that hold dominion over the forests of Kalimdor. And it's badass. During the Third War,
not it being
the Night Elves fought
badass
against demons, Scourge, Horde, and Alliance. Pretty much everyone that wasn't a Night Elf, and they suffered, kind of heavy losses, partly because of their stubborn nature. Their demigod Cenarius was slain by fell orcs, and the Kaldorei would not team up to defeat the demonic threat until the very last battle for Mount Hyjal, where Malfurion sounded a horn to rip Archimonde apart with 1,000 wisps and blow up the world tree of Teldrassil to defeat him, ending the Kaldorei's immortality in the process. Between the time of Warcraft III and World of Warcraft, the Kaldorei grew a new world tree of Teldrassil and built their new capital of Darnassus. And the Night Elves turned from these stoic, elusive, savage protectors of nature, and now they're
just guys.
Okay, Night Elves in WoW aren't necessarily bad, but they have definitely lost the edge that made them a step above the rest. Instead of being these aggressive tree huggers, now they've kind of just turned into tree huggers. This is partially because gameplay triumphs over lore constantly in Warcraft's story, and the Night Elves join the Alliance.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, the faction that is on the other side of the planet, and now they take orders from a king who has lived a small fraction of their lives and has an even smaller fraction of combat experience.
I'm not gonna lie, these like pictures of like Varian looking like this is so good to me. It's so fucking funny. I love this. This is my favorite. This is literally my favorite thing ever. Oh my god.
Throughout Classic WoW, the Night Elves are dealing with the corruption of Teldrassil, yeah, it's corrupted, and the Horde's logging expedition to Ashenvale. And for the next 2 expansions, Night Elves exist, but their story and their place in the world really doesn't change. During the Cataclysm, the world has been broken by a cataclysm, and the Night Elves suffer considerable damage because of this. During these troubling times, we actually get a shakeup in Kaldorei society. Morden Evershade, leader of the few remaining Highborn left on Azeroth, apologized for all the blowing up the world stuff, and the very few remaining Highborn were reintegrated into society. But the amount of Highborn that actually exist is very, very small, and really is just an excuse for Night Elf mages to now be a playable race and class combo. Also during the Cataclysm, the Worgen broke free from the Emerald Dream and ransacked the town of Gilneas. Since the Night Elves are mainly responsible for Worgens even existing in the first place, they help out where they could, and they invite them in.
Why is he so naked?
Hi besties, it's me, Miwa, and if you're enjoying today's video, please consider subscribing, okay? Like, please, 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 times 1 billion. I'm like, really asking this of you,
Kid, what is this outfit? What the hell?
Into the Alliance. Meanwhile, tensions between the Horde and the Alliance were ramping up. Horde offensives pushed into Darkshore and Ashenvale, but were repelled by the Elves. Although it wasn't a decisive victory. In the zone of Stonetown Mountains, a giant goblin-engineered bomb was dropped on Teldrassil Grove, killing soldiers and innocents alike. Finally, over on Mount Hyjal, the world tree of Teldrassil has grown back, but the Night Elves still aren't immortal, and they play a huge role in defeating Ragnaros, who has set up a base nearby. Okay, well, you know, all things considered, it's going pretty well for the Kaldorei right now.
I guess so.
This is just the calm before the storm. Miss Pandaria, nothing happens. Warlords of Draenor, nothing happens. Legion, a lot happens. First off, Tyrande and Malfurion travel to a zone called Val Shara.
Okay.
This is an ancient location where Malfurion was first born and trained to be the first ever druid to exist on Azeroth, under the tutelage of Cenarius. More recently, the satyr named Xavius has been corrupting the lands. During the questline, Malfurion is captured, and Tyrande and the player character need to rescue him. Malfurion is an incredibly lore-rich character.
Is Malfurion literally just a baby girl? Why does he keep getting kidnapped, guys? Genuine question, but why is this man like constantly getting kidnapped? Like, brother, can't you fight them off on your own? Huh? You know Tyrande makes Malfurion stay in bear form in bed. Yeah, I hate him, cause he's sleepy. He's just an EP guy? That is so insane to me. That's so funny. So the only reason why he keeps getting kidnapped is because he's just a sleepy dude. Okay, great.
Whose personality has been expanded upon over 21 years in books, comics, and in-game cutscenes. But for the average fan of World of Warcraft, they know him as the guy with the most hilariously pathetic voice lines where he's all like,
Tyrande, I need you. You cannot keep me from her. Where are you, Tyrande? No!
And here's the funny thing, it's actually Xavius impersonating Malfurion in these voice lines. But everyone kind of forgot about that detail, or it was just poorly translated. Also during the quest line, Ysera dies, a very close ally to the Night Elves, and oh yeah, also during Legion, the Nightborn, a Highborn adjacent faction of elves, wanted to ally with the Alliance, but Tyrande was apprehensive because they reminded her too much of the Highborn, with their limitless power and addiction to magic. So they joined the Horde instead.
Okay.
And then, in the Battle for Azeroth expansion, in BFA, the burning of Teldrassil is easily the most controversial event in Warcraft history. It was a radical change made to the game's story and world, something that is really rare in the MMO medium, and Night Elves suffered immensely. Easily their biggest loss since the Sundering of the World, but with great loss meant that we are able to get the brutal side of the Night Elves again, something that had been missing for the entirety of WoW since then. And visually,
That's crazy.
it was awesome.
Tyrande! I need you!
No
Tyrande
way.
partakes in an ancient ritual to become a Night Warrior, empowering herself with the vengeance of Elune. This is so cool, but ultimately feels hollow when she struggles to fight Nathanos, a guy with a bow. I feel like it would make more sense if she used her powers to turn him into literal ash because, you know, empowered by one of the strongest goddesses in the universe and all that.
Damn.
And again, the retaliation of the Night Elves feels hollow because the Alliance wins the battle to reclaim Darkshore, but it happens off-screen, the zone is a wasteland, and they push them all the way to the crossroads in the Barrens, which is explained in mission table quest text.
No.
Which can't possibly be more underwhelming. And hey, look, oh my god, Ajara is back. Her model is dope, her voice actress is amazing, the zone she's in is beautiful, and and she's gone. Nope.
No way.
Waited 15 years for that one. The Shadowlands expansion comes out, and if the Night Elves didn't have it hard enough, all of those elves that were murdered in the burning of Teldrassil are being funneled directly into hell to be tortured for all eternity. Which is so dark and depressing, it's almost comical. Tyrande manages to fight Nathanos alone and kills him this time, and then charges into the depths of hell, killing everything in her path to save the souls of her people. Later in the expansion, she finds Sylvanas, the one responsible for the suffering of the Night Elves.
Okay.
And they have a 1v1 fight, which, again, visually, so dope, but it ends with Tyrande's powers waning and Sylvanas just getting away, which, again, makes the badassness feel pretty hollow. Hell, even if she left a small little wound on Sylvanas, it would make this scene 1,000 times better. And ultimately, the storyline ends with Tyrande realizing she must focus on the renewal of her people instead of vengeance, which is...
Not it being
But there's a silver
boring.
lining to this. In order for Tyrande to not be the Night Warrior anymore, she basically has to go through this exorcism. And we get the coolest voice acting that we've gotten in WoW for years.
Ooh.
Now, even after she chooses renewal and is normal Tyrande again, she still is very mad at Sylvanas. But, you know, I'd much prefer in the world of Warcraft having Tyrande kick Sylvanas down to the pits of hell and then focusing on renewal of her people, but that's just me. And look, there's a lot of things about Shadowlands I can continue to talk about and how disappointing it was for the continuation of Warcraft's story, but really, I don't want this video to devolve into every single other lore video about Shadowlands that ultimately becomes Shadowlands is bad.
Yeah.
Okay, but not
That makes
everything is
sense.
horrible for the Night Elves. Tronda was given a new world seed imbued with the souls of dead Kaldorei, which most likely means we're getting a new world tree at some point, but it's currently in the Emerald Dream for safekeeping. And you know, seeing the amazing scale of Dragonflight zones, it should be pretty awesome compared to Teldrassil, which in-game was literally just a stump, surrounded by fog. And you know how I just said the seed is safe? Well, that's a goddamn lie, and the suffering of the Night Elves isn't done yet. Later on in
Ooh.
Dragonflight, bad guys called the Primalists invade the Emerald Dream and seal it off from being accessed from Azeroth. But it can be accessed from the Shadowlands, and the only one that can do that is Ysera, the former Green Dragonflight aspect that died in Legion. In order for her to leave the realm of death of the Shadowlands called Ardenweald, she needs someone to take her place, which Malfurion agrees to do. Sound
Okay.
convoluted? Yeah, I know. So basically Malfurion is in timeout in the realm of death while Ysera does stuff, but eventually they'll swap places again. And in response, Tronda says what every Night Elf fan has been thinking for the majority of Warcraft's story.
Okay.
I am so tired, Mafia.
No fucking shot. Wait, this is so dumb. Guys, that is so dumb. She really says that and then just fucking collapses? Oh my god.